This thing that's been going on with Sweet Baby Inc. these last several days have really taken off. Ordinarily, this wouldn't have been a big deal because it started off with this Steam account just curating this list of all the projects that Sweet Baby Inc. has been involved with. And it's not like they really had to dig to find this stuff. You can actually see on their own website the projects that they're involved with. It has it listed there. So all they really did was basically just curate this list onto a Steam page. And at first, people were just following it. I think there was like a few thousand when this all started, but because Sweet Baby Inc. was so butthurt about this whole situation and are trying to get this banned, well, then it kind of just exploded in a classic Streisand effect. And now you can see it's nearly 250,000 people actually following this page. Last night I looked at it and it was around 200,000. So it's grown around 25,000 since then and doesn't look like it's going to be stopping anytime soon. And this could have been avoided if Sweet Baby Inc. would have just shut up about this whole thing or just not even acknowledged it. But they had to. So this is the result. And it's all it is basically just saying these are projects that they're involved with and it just doesn't recommend them. It's like, okay, fair enough. People are allowed to have their opinions. And if a company like Sweet Baby Inc. is getting involved with certain projects, if you don't want to pay attention to it or you don't want to play it as a result of that, that's fine. You're certainly allowed to do that. But I said this in my last video talking about this, that the reason I think this has taken over the video game sphere for the last several days is because I don't think Sweet Baby Inc. is the only company doing this sort of thing. In fact, I think they're more or less a symptom of the underlying problem in that a lot of game studios want to insert this DEI stuff in order to boost up that ESG score so they can get that BlackRock money and things like that. And if people start calling this out and refusing to play these games, well, then all the BlackRock money in the world won't end up saving these games. So they want to try to stop all this dissent right now. But that's why a lot of game journalists are dubbing this Gamergate 2.0 because they've wanted to bring back Gamergate and it's kind of silly, but there is some similarities with Gamergate in that now we get journalists kind of rallying to the defense of game developers and companies like Sweet Baby Inc. And unfortunately for them though, they just don't really have much pull in the industry like this. People like this, just the average consumer, since we can actually speak with each other on social media and other things like that, that's where all the power lies to this. And it's kind of funny to see a lot of companies or a lot of media outlets trying to go to bat for Sweet Baby Inc. Because we got this one from Kotaku talking about like, oh, well, people are just confused about what this company actually does. And yeah, maybe so. I mean, but a lot of this, I was reading through this article, it does seem to be kind of like they're just straw manning the arguments against companies like Sweet Baby Inc. And saying like, oh, they don't just like deliberately try to insert identity politics into games or anything like that. They're saying that they're not like taking over the project. They're just kind of offering their suggestions and it doesn't have to do with DEI. It's just about X, Y, and Z. But no one believes you when you're saying that. Plus, people have looked into the author of this particular article and it really doesn't look too good for her. It's come to find out that she's a huge racist. So it really doesn't help the argument when you have a racist trying to defend a company like Sweet Baby Inc. And we got this other one coming out from the Gamer. Diversity is not your enemy in a live service world. They talk about like battle passes and endless grind leading to worse games and cheap demographic appeal. Sure, those are problems in games, but they're not the only problems. And this article again is making the same argument that Kotaku is making, where they're saying that they're not hired to take over the project from the studio that's developing the game. And I'm pretty sure no one is actually trying to make that argument. That's a complete straw man. If there is someone making the argument that a game studio will hire another company to take over the project for them, then yes, they're wrong and they should be called out on that. But like I said, I don't think anyone's actually making that argument. I think what these companies do is hire something like Sweet Baby Inc. to come in order to try to shoehorn in the diversity stuff into their game. And it is kind of funny seeing them just basically, when you have media outlets like this, just straw manning the argument against Sweet Baby Inc., that's not really a good sign, especially since people online like to share this type of information and we can actually fact check it ourselves. So it's obvious that they're just kind of distorting the actual facts of the matter to try to push their agenda, which is to protect a company like Sweet Baby Inc., which is frankly to me kind of funny that they're doing this instead of just telling the truth. But you know, it is what it is. But today, this was, I think, particularly funny because now we got a game developer actually going to bat for this company, which makes sense because game developers are the ones that hire a company like Sweet Baby Inc. They're not going to hire a company like that if they think they're going to make things worse for them, or maybe the company actually has their agenda that they want to push and it aligns with a company like Sweet Baby Inc. So they bring them in there to kind of see like, okay, how can you fix this, or what would you do to kind of push this type of messaging? I'm not necessarily saying definitively that's what they're doing, but it does seem like that's the case here. Bungie senior narrative designer defends Sweet Baby Inc., tells gamers you need to grow up. And this is really the biggest act of desperation in this whole situation right now. When you actually just start attacking the audience and attacking the fans, then you've really lost the plot on this one. To have a narrative designer attack the paying customer, Hollywood found that out the hard way. Look at the box office results for 2023. It doesn't help the studio when you attack the paying customer. People don't want to be lectured at when they're watching their form of escapism. I've said this in my last video. I don't necessarily even have a problem with having different groups that they're represented. I don't just necessarily want to play a game with just all white guys or anything like that. I was saying if you want to make a game centered around like African folklore or whatever, because they were initially talking about how in Sweet Baby Inc. they consulted what was that project? It was God of War Ragnarok, how there was black people that are Norse gods and that and things like that. And it's like saying like, you don't need to do that. If you wanted to make a game with like, let's say black people in it or something like that, make a game centered around African folklore. That's something a lot of people in the West aren't exposed to. And I personally think it could be pretty interesting because then you're exposing a new audience to something like that. I think that's true representation right there. Not this race swap stuff that they try to do for things that people already know, because that's just kind of irritating when you see that happen. Or better yet, I mean, look at Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. That was a real popular game when it first came out. So why not make something like that? Well, the upcoming GTA game has black people in it, it has female character, then that's fine. I have no problem with that. It just depends on how they're actually going to go about doing things, because that's the biggest thing with all this is there's nothing inherently wrong with having representation in your game, but there's a difference between having representation in that there's just characters that happen to be black or whatever, or versus there's characters that they want to make it a point that you know that they're black and all the struggles that they deal with and things like that. Because that's the stuff that when people are playing that, it's like it just takes them out of the experience and they're just kind of roll their eyes like, okay, it's one of those things right now. And maybe it's going to be not frequent enough to actually ruin the experience for them, or just something simple like that. If that's the case, okay, all right, fine. But either way, when you get a company like this that's putting that stuff in there, you just got to think, is it really going to enhance the game to the point where it's not going to have any pushback? Or if there is going to be pushback, is it going to bring enough people into the fold to offset the losses from people that it's alienating? And if the answer is no, well, then you should probably just pass this stuff up. And I was saying before, I don't think this is the only company doing this. I think there's other companies like this. And I think there's departments at some of these game studios that kind of deal with this stuff. And they're afraid because once people are openly just like calling out these things and making lists of games that have this stuff in it, then it really puts a target on their back. And I think a lot of these departments will find themselves on the chopping block if people are just deliberately not playing games because these people are involved with it or these groups are involved with it. So they do have a vested interest in trying to put a stop to it. But the internet is one of those things that once something's out there, you can't call it back. And now that people are talking about this, it's going to be part of the conversation from here on forward. So either just understand that and just try to reject it, or try to move past it and continue on with what you're doing, or you should start listening to the paying customers. And I think we're going to have to see some games flopping before that actually happens. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button. And if you can, leave a like and share the video because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.